This is Ryan Liz's piece in the New Yorker called the Obama Memos. And why it's so important and relevant is because we find out what his advisors were thinking behind the scenes and what President Obama was thinking and deciding. These are memos from inside the White House, no dispute, okay? So let me go through the piece and give you the little different things that we have learned that are so critical. So I'll just go through the whole article here. President Obama, of course, came in saying, you know what, there's this partisan bickering, and I'm going to cure that, and it's psychodrama of the 1960s playing out, etc. See, right there, instantly, I think we have a fundamental misunderstanding of the current situation in America in politics. Because this isn't about personalities, it isn't about psychodrama, it isn't even about ideology. Because if it was, look, I've brought conservatives and liberals together before. We reach agreement on things all the time. But that's because what we do is we try to find people who actually have different opinions and have genuine opinions, okay? But when you go to Washington, D.C., the Republicans are not in a psychodrama. It's not about the 1960s. And they don't have any ideology. They are corporate machines. They will oppose you because they get paid to oppose you. As I read through this, I'm stunned at how little President Obama understands that concept. And I thought, like, he's a really smart guy. He's been in office all this time. He's been in Washington. He's been in politics. How can you not understand that what motivates the Republican politicians is the money that they are getting? And that ideology is irrelevant. But they have said over and over again that they want to balance budgets, but they never do. You know, it's because why? They want to hand the tax cuts to the rich. Now, we've gone over that a million times, but what's interesting about this is how President Obama doesn't understand it. So he said that, by the way, so there were some studies done, and this is interesting too. The Republican Party has drifted further to the right than the Democratic Party has drifted to the left, according to Jacob Hacker. He's a professor at Yale, called Off-Center. So the polarization has gotten worse, but it's not even like President Obama, unfortunately, often states in public, and certainly not how the media portrays it. This is a really interesting fact. Senate Republicans moved, and I'm quoting Off-Center here, and according to congressional voting records, Senate Republicans moved roughly twice as far to the right as Senate Democrats moved to the left. House Republicans moved roughly 6 times as far to the right as House Democrats moved to the left. That's what they call asymmetric polarization, okay? So if you just split the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, you're going to be in a situation where you are far, far to the right of where we were in the 1970s, 80s, etc. It's factual, okay? Now, second part of this is that President Obama is apparently, as he was taking office, told people that politics is played between the 40-yard lines. But think about that. That's a second fundamental misunderstanding of what's happening in Washington, D.C. Dick Cheney and George Bush moved the ball to the 10-yard line. And President Obama has moved it back, if at all, by 5 yards. And he thinks, all right, we're at the 45. You're not at the 45. You're at the 15 at best. They're about to score. They're in the red zone. If you think that the Republicans and the Democrats are really within the 40-yard lines of politics and that's how you win, again, it seems like you have no historical context for what's happening. I'm amazed by that. And as I read this, I guess secretly I must think that he's got to know something I don't. I mean, he's in the belly of the beast. He's the president of the United States. He's got all this access to this information, etc. But somehow they are blinded inside that bubble. Between the 40-yard lines, what are you talking about? All right. Now, I know, and it's an old saying, and but that's what I'm trying to explain. That old saying does not apply to current-day politics. All right. Now, George C. Edwards III is a political scientist at Texas A&M, and Liza quotes him in his book, The Strategic President. He talks about there are 2 different kinds of presidents. One is a director of change, and another one is a facilitator of change. What's the difference? A director is someone who wants to change the system. A facilitator works the system, right? So works within the boundaries of the system, trying to facilitate a little bit of change. And Ryan Liza accurately explains throughout this whole thing, and by the way, you should know this is important. Liza doesn't view any of this negatively. If anything, he puts a positive spin on all of this, and gives Obama credit for being a facilitator, et cetera, et cetera. But it's exactly the opposite of what Obama promised in his campaign. He said, I am not going to play the same old Washington games, just a little better. I'm going to change the game in Washington. Now, as Liz explains from the secret memos that we've gotten now, no, he did no such thing. The minute he got in, he was like, no, change is too hard. We're going to do for facilitation a little bit of change within the system by playing within the rules. Okay, then you get a look at his advisor, advisors. Peter Orszag was the incoming budget director. We told you on the program before that it appeared that he was very conservative within the administration. Totally, utterly confirmed. He's the advocated fiscal restraint, cutting spending, trying to balance the budget, austerity. Now, nothing wrong with balancing the budget, but again, it depends on your context. If you got a major, major recession on your hands and you're bleeding millions of jobs as they were when they first came in, and your guy says, hey, let's cut spending, let's cut Social Security, let's cut Medicare, that's a disaster. And that's your budget director. Unfortunately, of course, he winds up listening to him a lot more than I was going to say some of the progressives, but honestly, in the whole piece, there appears to be only one progressive in the administration. It's Christina Romer, and she's since then left. So then you go to Summers. When they go to discuss the stimulus program, Romer's the only one pushing for a larger program. Summers refuses to even put that among the options. Larry Summers, who of course was the head of the Economic Council, he advised the president that a larger stimulus could actually make things worse. Really? How would it make it worse? So that's interesting. They say an excessive recovery package, according to Summers, this is a quote in one of the memos, an excessive recovery package could spook markets. So let me break that one down for you. This is also telling, right? Because what he's saying is if you actually try to fill, remember, there's a $2 trillion hole in the economy, and the stimulus they did was around $800 billion. Say, if you do it too large, markets won't like that you're doing government spending, and they'll punish you, and then hence the economy will get set back. First of all, there's actually, even though that sounds like a plausible theory, there's no evidence to that effect at all. The way that they would punish you is by saying, hey, we don't think you're going to be able to pay your back, the money that people have lent you, and hence interest rates will go up, right? But interest rates on Treasury bonds have not gone up at all. Paul Krugman makes that point over and over again. He's absolutely right on that. So in a best case scenario, Larry Summers was way off. But in reality, that's not what they do. He knows that. He doesn't want that much stimulus spending because he's deeply conservative. So he advises the president only on limited options, and the president goes along. But the other reason why that passage is so telling is that's how they constantly threaten the president. Now, we've seen other internal memos, et cetera, from the White House where whenever, and the president has said it in public too, so I could do that, but then the bond market and the markets would be concerned. That's a threat they always give to the president. If you don't do what we tell you, the markets are going to be very angry with you. And that's how Wall Street controls us. Another enormously telling part. President Obama, when he came in, wanted to do a smart grid. And what that would do is it would be a high voltage transmission system known as an electricity superhighway. That's actually a really good idea, and I was really encouraged to see that President Obama wanted to do that. That would add huge infrastructure to the country. It would get us off of old forms of energy, get us into new forms of energy. It would pump a lot of money into the economy. It'd be an investment. I mean, it's a win in so many different ways. Guess what happened? His advisors talked him out of it. How do they do that? They said, oh, no, you need shovel-ready projects, and we need to spend money right away. And it would take 10 years to build this electricity superhighway, so don't do it. No, but you need long-term investment. And what can you do in 6 months or 18 months? What that is short-term spending that I'm actually not convinced helps the economy, and I'm worried adds to the deficit, okay? If you're going to add to the deficit, let it at least be a project that's worthy so that it creates jobs down the road and puts us in a better shape. You should have never let them talk you out of that. So encouraging that he actually had the right idea, very discouraging that he was easily talked out of it. Now, here's another idea that the president at least wanted to consider, and this is a story we've covered on the show before. Nationalization of the banks, saying, hey, you know what, Citigroup is so underwater, so bankrupt in reality, maybe we should take it over. And we told you in a previous story that Tim Geithner, and this is from Ron Suskind's book, just dismissed it, refused to do what the president asked him to do, didn't even come up with a plan to take over Citigroup. I mean, they're so callously dismissive of what the president wants, and the president keeps going along with it. So how do they talk him out of this? They say, there's a risk that by attempting a program of this kind, and I'm quoting the New Yorker piece here, there's a risk that by attempting a program of this kind, we will pull the Band-Aid off a wound that we lack the capacity to sterilize and thus exacerbate the problem. Now, who said that? Tim Geithner. Now, what do you learn from that? Tim Geithner realizes that what they did with the banks was just put a Band-Aid on a problem. But he tells the president, no, don't take the Band-Aid off, because if you take the Band-Aid off, then we might make the problem worse. But in order to fix the actual underlying problem, you got to take the Band-Aid off at some point. No, their suggestion was Band-Aids. And that's where we still are, and that's why the economy has not really fully recovered. Certainly the banks have not, and finally even the markets are beginning to realize that and punish their stock market values. So now here's another alternative that was proposed, and it's interesting at least that they're considering some progressive alternatives, at least for an incredibly brief period of time before they spike and kill them. They were going to do a program to get more taxes from the business community in terms of money that I believe they were bringing in back into the country, right? And of course, the advisors pour into President Obama, don't do it, oh my God, the business community's hurt, dog. Don't ask them if they're all right. So what do? Summers, Geithner, they propose, quote, even more defanged alternative, one that would be more responsive to the business community's concerns, but would certainly be criticized by some as caving. Now, President Obama does not go for the full cave. This is encouraging. He goes for only half a cave on this one. Obama didn't completely capitulate to the multinationals, and he adopted his aide's modestly clipped package. So every single time the aides come, don't do it, oh, look out for the banks, look out for big business, oh, come on, Obama, don't hurt him. And every time, either President Obama kills it entirely or goes halfway, okay? Now, President Obama is going to put in a provision in one of his State of the Unions that we've got to tighten our belts in Washington as families across the country are. Christina Romer, again, the only progressive advisor he has in this entire piece that you can see that is quoted at all inside these internal memos, says, please, for the love of God, don't say that, because you're feeding into Republican ideology. You're feeding into this idea of austerity, and not only that, it's the exact wrong policy. In the middle of a recession, you don't tighten your belts. You spend a little bit so that you can stimulate the economy so we can get out of the recession and get more revenue later because people are actually earning a paycheck. And of course, you're going to be shocked to find out Christina Romer was not listened to, as always. Okay. So now he wanted to get rid of the polarization in Washington. How'd that work out for him? Poll out saying that the Gallup poll saying that President Obama is the most polarizing president in history. Now, is it because of his actions? No, you see in the memos constantly capitulating, caving, doing what the conservatives and the Republicans want. No, it's the right-wing media. They were going to smear him no matter what. Who told you that? From day one, we were telling you that. It doesn't do you a bit of good to try to appease them because they're not going to get appeased. They're corporate machines. They make a dollar by making sure that they oppose you at every turn. So it turns out now the difference between Democratic approval of him and Republican disapproval is the highest ever recorded. How's that bipartisanship working out for you? Now, yet another memo where a president's advisors say that they believed it was, quote, better to channel the anti-government winds than to fight them. So the Republicans are saying, oh, government's the problem, government's the problem. And what do his advisors say? Agree with them. Don't fight them, just agree with them. Now, they go to a specific issue here. The president was considering a one-year non-defense spending freeze. Now, it turned out that he did a 3-year spending freeze. Here's a quote from the article. The freeze was controversial. Liberals would call it mad to restrain federal spending during a recession, and Republicans would call it trivial. But they did it anyway, and guess what happened? Yeah, liberals were mad. The Republicans gave him zero credit, called it incredibly trivial. So why do you keep going in their direction if it never gets you anything? As you read through this entire thing, and as Ben pointed out, it's about 25 pages long. It's a maddening exercise in like, how could he be going through all of this and still be so dense as to not understand the dynamics of what's happening here? Like, he's constantly looking for credit. Well, oh, how about this one? How about this one? The Republicans give me credit on this? No, get it through your head. They're never going to give you credit on anything. Okay. And then, by the way, the other thing that we've been saying all along is he actually, as you see in most of these, he's a guy who thinks the answer is always between the Republicans and the Democrats. He thinks they're between the 40-yard lines when they're nowhere near it. They're all the way far to the right. So that's why he keeps picking positions that are considerably right-wing. And he doesn't even understand how right-wing they are. And every one of his advisors, with the exception of Romer, who's no longer there, keeps saying, no, go further right. Go further right. Why did you pick all these right-wing guys? All right, now, here we go. At one point, they finally have a somewhat progressive proposal inside the White House. They say, hey, let's just do a 5% tax on people making over $250,000. Now, remember, this is what President Obama campaigned on, that for people under $250,000, he wouldn't do any tax raises. People making over $250,000, he thought we should institute, get rid of the Bush tax cuts, basically. But here, he changes his mind, not his advisors, President Obama. And he says, well, $250,000, that might be considered middle class, so he spikes it. Obama rejected the tax hike. So every once in a while, you'll hear Obama defenders on the left saying, oh, what could he do with Congress always fighting him, etc. No, he wanted to get rid of those Bush tax cuts. He just couldn't do it. We find out from the memos that's actually not true. He's on the campaign trail now. He was in University of Michigan today talking about, oh, we got to raise taxes on the rich. It's just not fair. It's not right. When he had the opportunity to do, he personally decided not to do it. Now, here was another. God, these are all such great examples. Now, what they want to do is pay federal employees to participate in a pilot program to study the most effective treatments for patients. So this is part of the health care proposal, right? So what happened? His advisors step in and say, no, the right-wing media will attack you for it. Dan Pfeiffer, quote, Pfeiffer also thinks it could easily be caricatured by the right-wing press. Of course, that scares the living daylights out of them. And some final passage of Obama's health care plan was in sight, but they say, quote, it was not time to hand Fox News a new anti-Obama storyline. What did we tell you? We told you that they're looking at Fox News all day and scared to death of Fox News and what they're going to say. Don't hand them a storyline that would be anti-Obama. Every storyline is anti-Obama. I'm amazed by how dense they are. So what do? They back away from, and this is not even a progressive position. It's just a smart, efficient plan that they were going to do that would have made health care better. It doesn't even have ideals. Don't hand it to the Fox News. Run away. Here is what the president himself wrote at the end of this memo. Quote, unfortunately, I think the political guys are right about how it would be characterized. Let's go back at it in future years when the temperature on healthcare and the economy has gone down. Now look at that fundamental misunderstanding. When is the temperature ever going to go down on healthcare or the economy? Now, since he wrote that, has it gone down at all? No, it's only gone up. They've attacked and attacked and attacked on Obamacare, economy. This guy's the worst. The temperature's never going to go down. So if you're waiting for the temperature, quote unquote, the temperature to go down and to put together either progressive or smart proposals when Fox News won't attack you on it, you're never going to put them forward. And guess what? Of course, in the rest of his term, he did not put that policy forward at all, ever, okay? So the memos also explain that Obama decided that against more ambitious ideas repeatedly, and he was left with, quote, smaller, more symbolic efforts that are, quote, less politically risky. Nailed it. Obama in a nutshell. Smaller efforts, not as ambitious, less risky. Let's just dip our toe in the water here and see how it goes, okay? Is everything going to be okay? Fox News didn't yell at us, did they? Oh, my God, okay. Oh, what did my conservative advisors say? Okay, then I'm in favor of that. Okay, just tiny little bit of change. Oh, did I do well? Did I do well? Oh, do they agree with me now? Oh, they don't? Golly gee. His economic team warned that the political climate, when it came to the Bush tax cuts, could gain serious traction. the attacks against him could if he actually ended if he ended the Bush tax cuts. Okay. Now again, we come back to this issue, right? Remember, President Obama had been saying all along, I want to get rid of the Bush tax cuts for the rich. His advisors tell him, no, don't do it, because then the conservatives will beat up on you, and that we're worried about the political environment. But at the time, we were told, oh, President Obama didn't want to do it. Oh, but they twisted his arm, and he had to do it as a part of a compromise. And in return, they allowed him to breathe oxygen and drink water and grab a sandwich every once in a while. He got almost nothing in return. They got extending unemployment insurance, which is like the most normal thing in the world. They got, extending the nuclear treaties, which again was a perfectly uncontroversial passage before. But we were told he had to do it in a compromise with the Republicans. No, it turns out in the internal memos, he wanted to do it because his political advisors told him, no, you'll get beat up if you raise taxes on the rich. Do they actually believe that? If they do, they're the worst political advisors you've ever seen. In fact, they must now realize that error if they really genuinely believed it, because right now the president is running his whole re-election campaign on raise taxes on the rich. But when he had a chance to do it, he chose not to do it over and over again. By the way, one of his advisors told him, don't worry, it won't pass anyway. Nancy Pelosi will never allow it. How'd that work out? Yeah, I know. Democrats will stand up and be tough. Yeah, that's not how it went down. The Bush tax cuts for the rich, of course, were extended on Obama's watch, apparently because he wanted them extended, because he was scared. Now, in the beginning of the piece, he talked about how he'd brought together these conservative writers. You remember that, right, when he came into office? George Will, et cetera. They had a lovely meeting, and Rich Lowry said at the end of the dinner, Mr. President, I'm praying for you, right? All this stuff. And he thought, oh, good, I convinced him to be on my side. You see, like that, you just charmed him, that's it. Here's what those guys at that specific dinner have written about President Obama since. George Will has called him a floundering knife and said that he was advancing Lenin socialism. So how'd that charm offensive go? Charles Krauthammer wrote Obama was sanctimonious, demagogic, self-righteous, and arrogant. Larry Kudlow wrote that what President Obama practices is, quote, crony capitalism at its worst. Michael Barone called it gangster government. Rich Lowry, who pretended to pray for him, called him, quote, the whiniest president ever. And Peggy Noonan wrote, he is not a devil, an alien, a socialist. He is a loser. He invites them to dinner. He didn't invite progressives in the beginning, progressive writers. He had them over at the White House eventually, much later time. But in the beginning, he brings the conservatives in, has dinner with them, treats them well. And then they turn around and go, get loser, Leninist, socialist, crony capitalist, whiner, loser. Well, I thought you were going to convince them to be on your side. What happened? Turns out we were right, you were wrong. You can't get them on your side because they're not honest actors. They don't give a damn what you do, and they don't care if it's right or wrong. They're paid to oppose you. All right. Now, here's another. I mean, these things are a treasure chest if you're looking to analyze President Obama and his advisor. Steve Jobs met with President Obama. Afterwards, he said, quote, the president is very smart, but he kept explaining to us reasons why things can't get done. It infuriates me. Nailed it. That's exactly it. Steve Jobs. Look, and we've had, story after story here about Apple, and they didn't treat their workers right in China. Most of the jobs they created are abroad. I'm not saying Steve Jobs is any kind of demigod. I'm not praising Apple as like the end-all, be-all. But the guy knew how to win, right? He knew how to create a company that was unique, that was different. He knew how to get the job done, right? Nobody disagrees with that. He sees President Obama and he says, this guy, all he's doing is creating excuses. So it's infuriating, telling me why, I can't get this done because of this, and I can't get it done. I get the sense that if Obama worked for Steve Jobs, he'd have fired him. He'd have been like, I know, yeah, you couldn't get the iPhone down in time, blah, blah, blah. Like, get the hell out of here. No, you're done, okay? And it's true, it's infuriating. All the different reasons why he can't do something. Ironically, that is how losers talk. The White House staff memos show Obama scaling back his proposals in the face of the business lobby, designing a health care bill to attract support from doctors, rejecting schemes from his aides that could be caricatured by the right, and in dozens of other ways making the unpleasant choices of governing in a system defined by its constraints. Again, Ryan Lizzo writing that is saying, oh, he's basically supporting up Obama and saying, what could he do? The constraints of the system. But he just described to you all the ways that he chose not to do bold action, not to do change that he promised. Change the way Washington works, didn't even try. And finally, Lizzo explains that memos show a cautious president, someone concerned with his image. You got that right, my friend. And ironically, he does not help his image at all by being weak, by at best doing half measures, almost always agreeing to the conservative way of seeing economic issues, which has not worked, and being scared to death of what the right wing and Fox News is going to tell him. It's all the worst things that we had hoped weren't true but suspected, all confirmed. So now you know Obama, for better or for worse.